The Bitcoin Group, the American original. For over the last 10 years, the sharpest Satoshis, the best Bitcoins, the hardest cryptocurrency talk. We'd like to welcome our panelists, Dan Eve, the Crypto Raptor.
Hey, happy Friday.
And I'm Thomas Hunt from the World Crypto Network. Moving on to issue 1, the price of Bitcoin. The price of Bitcoin is up 0.15% in the last 24 hours, with a last of $97,025, a high of $97,915, and a low of $96,208. That's $1 for 1,031 Satoshis, just on the other side of the 1,000 Satoshi barrier. Our top story, CitiBank will allow customers to invest in Bitcoin and various cryptocurrencies directly from their bank accounts, per the Wall Street Journal. Morgan Stanley to offer crypto trading to E-Trade clients. Charles Schwab to launch spot crypto trading in the next 12 months. The major banks are capitulating. They're also responding to, again, the success of the right-wing political Bitcoiners who, with the success of Trump, delivered that legislation allowing banks to be involved in cryptocurrency, which, as we suggested before, would have crushed Coinbase, would have crushed the Bitcoin industry, and now seems on its way to do just that. CitiBank allowing direct access to bank accounts. Morgan Stanley offering direct access to E-Trade. Charles Schwab launching crypto trading. Dan Eve, the banks are surrendering to Bitcoin. It is Victory Day. You, I, so many others, people before us certainly have said it over and over again. The banks will accept Bitcoin. The banks will trade Bitcoin, allow people access to Bitcoin. That day seems like it's almost here. What do you think?
Yeah, well, definitely over that side of the pond it does. So American banks are becoming more lenient, getting involved in more crypto, being more open about stacking Bitcoin, holding it, the ETFs, etc. Meanwhile, over here, they've just announced again that, or they announced now in the UK that credit cards will not be allowed to be used on crypto platforms. As from not sure when, but it's pretty soon. So whilst over in America you're enjoying freedom and Bitcoin freedom, over here we're stifling innovation, as we always do, putting that red flag in front of the car as always. And I think also the EU banned or said they're going to ban privacy coins by 2027. Not that we're part of the EU anymore, like kind of in and out by the seams of it. But either way, we'll probably end up banning them too, because we've seemed to have adopted all the EU laws despite Brexit. So everything's all up in the air.
Seems like you got a little bit of EU envy over there.
Oh, I do. Well, I do. I do like. I miss free movement, man. Like I wanted to move and to a different country, and everything's just visa based and stuff. And Spain's got rid of their golden visa. And I think they're charging, I'm sure I read they're charging something crazy like 100% property tax for foreign investment. So everything is kind of all a bit whiffy over here, I'd say, over this side of the water, especially when it comes to banking and crypto. Obviously, the ECB has still got a pretty crazy stance on it. So it's good to see America opening up, definitely. Oh, that was it. The EU saying banning privacy coins and privacy assets. So that's fantastic. Thanks, EU.
Well, I do think we should pause and celebrate and appreciate our victory here. I once again just want to say, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. And for the people in the back, I told you so, I told you so, I told you so. And for all the people, remember when JP Morgan or Jamie Dimon made fun of Bitcoin and was criticizing cryptocurrency and all of that? Everyone's, it's for criminals. And we're like, kind of seems like the early internet, where they also criticized it and said it was for criminals, Usenet and other things like that. But there is a difference, once again, between what Satoshi wanted, the whole point of Bitcoin, and the joyous idea that your bank could now hold Bitcoin for you. That's not the point of Bitcoin. The point of Bitcoin is that the financial crisis was caused by bad loans that they put in boxes. Then you would buy the box thinking that there was a good loan inside. Lack of transparency. You don't know what you have. The same thing with the dollar and other fiat-based current systems. You don't know how much they're inflating it. You don't know how much supply there is. You don't know what you have. There's no reason for uncertainty anymore. We don't have the pastor read us the Bible in Latin. You can read the book yourself. That's Satoshi's point. He's Martin Luther hammering on the wall his 95 theses, which were all Bitcoin white papers. And the point was not banks shall hold crypto, governments shall hold crypto. You can hold it in the banks. The point was you hold it, you send it around, you use it, unstoppable currency. That's why it's valuable. It's a virtue loop. If you replace one of the legs, the virtue loop stops working, the virtuous cycle. But we're going to find out more about that later. Dan, what do you think more on this issue? Banks giving up a huge victory for Bitcoin. Of course, remember early Bitcoiners like libertarians, I'm sure, have been calling for this for years, calling for this before Mad Bitcoins, before all of our work. What do you think, Dan?
Well, there is that argument still about centralization of coins, obviously not necessarily mining, but when you have huge custodians or huge institutions that are piling into Bitcoin and owning large amounts of it, there becomes a risk that, for example, what if like one of these institutions was hacked, they held a huge amount of Bitcoin, and then then goes the campaign to roll back the chain and other stupid stuff like that they've tried in the past. So there's always that kind of risk. Obviously, it's a massive outlier case, but just in general, holding too much. 500, is it 500,000 Bitcoin that MicroStrategy now own? See, it's strategy. It's a lot of Bitcoin. I mean, he obviously doesn't hold the keys. I think that's been established, right? Because no one can kind of trace it. But so it's a lot of Bitcoin for one party to be holding. It's scary to know that, to a certain extent.
It's also scary to think about the sell risk. If the bank decides they don't like Bitcoin tomorrow,
Indeed.
they want to sell it, or as other people have talked about, they could use these clever financial interests and borrow against it or loan it or rehypothecate it, right? Which was the whole point of what Satoshi's talking about and what I'm talking about with these bad loans in the boxes. You didn't have transparency. You couldn't see through. With the Bitcoin network, it's transparency. You can see through it. You can see how much money there is in the network. You can see it when they send around. The bank says, oh, we have, like, for instance, Jax 21 last week said, we have 42,000 Bitcoins on our holding. If they wanted to, they could provide a direct link to an address where we could see live that money's there. And when they're tired of showing off their public money, they'd probably have to move it to a bunch of other addresses where we would follow it and track it and trace it. And that transparency, that ability to see through, is part of the Satoshi promise. And that promise is not kept if it's just a number in your account and you have Bitcoin in your PayPal account and I have Bitcoin in my Schwab account and you have CitiBank Bitcoin.
CitiBank. Welcome to CitiBank.
And we could send it around. Imagine, Dan, they would let us send like our Bitcoin between CitiBank and Schwab, and you could send it to Royal Bank and RSBC or whatever.
And it won't even be on chain, will it? You know it's not going to be on chain.
We're going to send it lightning fast, but not on the Lightning Network.
By a sequel.
It's going to be Bitcoin, but it's not going to be on the Bitcoin network. So if you
biggest spreadsheet ever.
Yeah, if you want to send it on the weekend, or if you want to send it to a cause that we don't approve of, or if we want to reverse the transaction, basically it's just going to be like the old fiat network, but we're going to call it Bitcoin.
Yeah, another step I just wanted to add as well is that I've noticed a few companies, even the last couple of months that I've interacted with recently, my card's been rejected in certain crypto services, which is weird because it never used to do that, and the bank's not notified anyone. I found a few other tweets of people saying the same thing, so purchases they've made before. So yeah, it really does seem in the UK we're going backwards. We're going back in time right now with regulation.
Well, you guys have had trouble since the Brexit issue, but over here in the US, I want to, again, for the audience, I want to think about this. I want an apology for everyone whose account was shut down for using crypto. Everybody who got an angry letter, you've been buying things with crypto, you've been buying things at crypto websites. I know so many people that got scared out of their bank accounts, got chased out of their bank accounts, people who had businesses. I know a guy who went to jail for selling Bitcoin on local Bitcoins. And now Charles Schwab is going to sell you Bitcoins, and CitiBank is going to sell you Bitcoins, and everything's fine now. And I saw a great graphic from, of course, Michael Saylor, who says everything 5 years after we said it. And he said, oh, if Bitcoin's worth $1 million now, by the time your financial advisor suggests it, it'll be worth 10 million. And we've been saying that since it was worth 100. So it's funny to see these people get here and all these people to follow them, where it's like they're just saying things that I said 5 years ago that other people said 10 years ago. Like certainly we have people, the Bitcoin channel before us, Andreas Antonopoulos, Roger Ver, other people like that who certainly came before, Risto, people who said, yeah, Bitcoin's going to be 50K. Yeah, it's going to be 100K. It's going to be 1 million, 10 million. And even now we have people, Tim Draper was echoing what Mad Bitcoins has always said. Bitcoin price will go to 1 million, which I think is a good segue to the Bitcoin predictor ball, the source of all power in this universe. Dan, Eve, will the price of Bitcoin be higher or lower? I think they were saying in the chat last week, the ball predicted higher. The ball, of course, was right. Dan, what will you predict? Higher?
Yeah,
or lower?
I'm going higher. I reckon we could be above 100K. I think we need to be above 100K. It's made, right? We're on the beginning of the bull run, really. Like we're returning to the bull run. Gonna blast past 107. soon.
People mocked me. People called it hopium. They said that you're following that tech dev guy, and he says there'll be a second pump. He says it's all about the business liquidity cycle, has nothing to do with your halvening and your woo-woos and your, Trump tariffs. And look, here we are on the base of a second bull run, that the first bull run's not over. I told you so. I told you so. I told you so. But again, I always invest the opposite, or I panic at the wrong time, so it doesn't matter to me. But I do like being right. And in addition to being right, we also have the Bitcoin predictor ball. Will the price of Bitcoin be higher this time next week? Here we go. And it says, don't count on it. Don't count on it. The ball is bearish. Moving on to issue 2. CIA Deputy Director hints agency uses Bitcoin, crypto as tools against China and other adversaries. As we've said before, they said Bitcoin was criminal money. They said it was untrackable. We said it was on a ledger as plain as an Excel spreadsheet. You could just log in and view it. If you had some technology people, you could probably parse it and track it the way they do at snitch analysis, or whatever it's called. But this is
snitch.
Snitch. But this is a continuing problem with Bitcoin, that it is so transparent. The CIA is, quote, excited about using Bitcoin to track criminal activity. It's a competition now of who can track it the best and make money tracking people. Of course, this could all be broken if Bitcoin would only institute Bitcoin privacy. Let's go to Thomas Hunt. What do you think about the CIA deputy director saying that they use Bitcoin and they look forward to it? Well, we've been saying this for years, and maybe this is an episode of I Told You So's, but yes, of course, Bitcoin is good for law enforcement. We've talked about this for years. It's incredibly trackable. You can track the Bitcoin. There's even these things they try to jump off to this currency, jump off to that one, use this one and that one. There always seems to be a way, a digital footprint that they track it. It's very different than the world of actual crime, where if there's not a videotape, if there's not an audio recording, you don't really know what happened. So yes, I think that's again, but I, as a technologist, and I'm sure many of you out there see this as a problem with Bitcoin, a thing that can be fixed. And that Bitcoin is, although they've talked a lot about ossification, and we'll try to talk about that later, it is malleable. It is a thing that can be changed, and a thing, of course, that must be changed. It's very obvious that Satoshi did not intend for this to be so trackable and obvious. It's kind of like a scaffolding, a thing that you build first as a scale around your building that you then build and then remove the scaffolding. So again, I call for more privacy on Bitcoin. We had the scaling debate. Now it's time for the privacy debate, or at least for somebody to get going. So let's see it. Dan, Eve, what do you think? The CIA is excited about Bitcoin, and they're not just admitting that they are Satoshi Nakamoto and they own the whole network. What do you think?
Well, they've kind of been familiar with it from the start. Well, I say from the start, from near the start, right? Especially with would have been the CIA that would have worked on the Silk Road case, probably with FBI. I don't know how the architecture works.
They all kind of play. I think that NSA is probably most related to Bitcoin. They have a lot of cryptography type people. A lot of people have posited, if you're going to guess like what department of the government did Bitcoin come out of in somebody's free time or in somebody's project, you would say NSA, you'd say CIA, certainly not FBI. But all of these are possibilities.
Yeah, so as an intelligence tool, its pseudonymity is actually really good for traceability. So again, I still speak to people now who are like, oh, it's bad because it's anonymous, and it's really not. It's once you explain to someone that you have address ABC, and if I send address to address DEF, then DEF can see where I got my funds from, the addresses that fed mine, unless I actually mine the coins fresh. So it's a very traceable system. There's Zach, I think it's Zach XBT on Twitter, does a lot of really good analysis on hacks. I think he focuses a lot on Ethereum stuff, but does a lot on the bit. In fact, no, he did a big bit. There was a recent one, right? 3,500 Bitcoin, I think, that went missing. And he did incredible analysis of where that was flowing to, which mixes it was going to. They were then able to trace from the mixers what the likely outputs were. So to try and track back, back to the Bitcoin that was sent in. So for the general user using a mixer and other means of obfuscating your transactions is generally, it's a good thing. It's good practice for financial privacy. But for the intelligence agencies and the pros, they're pretty good at tracking things down right now. And that's, I think, why we're seeing that news today, actually, from the EU, that Bitcoin is very traceable, but privacy coins like Monero and others aren't. So there's going to be a push. And as we've mentioned on the show before, nothing's probably going to push privacy on Bitcoin more than governments wanting to have their coins hidden from public view, because that's something that's going to be quite an interesting flex, is when the public starts to trace what the government's doing with their coins if they're not being transparent. Once
And
they know
the businesses as well, taking the new 21 as an example, 42,000 Bitcoins. We know Josh, who's frequently on the show with Vaultoro, they created a Glassbooks protocol where they used cryptography and intelligence and other things to show their Bitcoin without showing their Bitcoin. We don't even see this in 21. We don't even see an attempt at this. Yeah, they've divided their Bitcoin by the number of shares, which is impressive, but my computer can do math too. But we don't see these actual cryptographic proofs, which are possible. Yet we know on the other side that we will see the dark side of these cryptographic proofs. As Dan was saying, the potential for marked coins or banned coins, for them to say these coins were in the Silk Road, these coins were in the Wah 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 heist, whatever it was, we're not accepting those coins, is very possible, and is a legitimate reason beyond privacy, beyond security, whatever, for developers to say, we need to fix this in Bitcoin so that people can't do this to us, and that we could have a software solution before they develop a political solution, which is really just as simple as a filter. These coins, coin number 115, 117, 119, whatever it is, we're banning those coins. And again, developers, we need to get ahead of this. We need to get on this. We need that genius develop out there to say, oh, I've got the plan, I've got the idea, to get that patch out there, make a speech about it, do some PowerPoints. Let's do it. Dan, Eve, are you on that? Let's see, the other thing I have says about the FBI. We always used to say at DEF CON, they're like, when they were interviewing people in the audience who had a fanny pack, a fanny pack that might contain a weapon and a badge. And they would say, oh, sir, are your parents married? Oh, okay. Oh, then you couldn't be FBI. Stuff like that. They were very fun. We had a good time. Spot the Fed, they called it, Spot the Fed. But let's move on to the exit question. Dan, Eve, will it happen? Will Bitcoin develop privacy features, or are we too ossified, too locked up, too many political and large-scale financial problems to change the network and implement the features that people want?
Well, it's seeming that the more time goes on, the harder it is to push changes and get consensus. And the recent PR has shown how much of a battleground even the certain ideas are, the op return PR. So I mean, privacy would be a great thing to have, and I think there's a lot of reason, even though governments are pushing for, again, the EU saying, oh, we don't, encryption's bad, you shouldn't encrypt things, and Apple in the UK saying they're no longer doing end-to-end encryption and all that. Commercially, privacy is required. From a political side, governments will require privacy. So it's going to be those that will be the drivers of whether Bitcoin gets privacy and not the general public. Obviously, there's voting that miners voting that comes into it, but it's the main push is going to be commercial. I think commercial and government.
The answer is yes. Yes, we will get privacy on Bitcoin. It will happen because it's a missing link. All the roads point to this one spot where the software needs to be that makes Bitcoin private. And right now, that software is missing. That step is gone. We need that step. There's a financial incentive. You as a developer could make lots of money. There's a popularity, a fame incentive. You would be a famous developer like Vitalik Buterin. People would put you on magazine covers. You could be the one. So I think that those things together, the incentives align for someone to make Bitcoin private. And also, I think for multiple different directions. I don't know what the ideas are offhand. I'm sure smarter people than me, cryptographic people know, but we should try all of those directions to make Bitcoin private. We have a pretty open network. Hopefully we can plug in whatever your idea is. We can institute it. We can try it out. We can scale it. And whatever one works, let's go with that one. If we need to mix them together, let's do that. I think that's going to work, that kind of flexible approach. But in general, I think that I and everyone else, hopefully we all agree, Bitcoin needs to be private.
Yeah.
Bitcoin needs its privacy, and I mean, she needs it today, as they said in The Music Man. Moving on, check out the World Crypto Network. We've got 4,331 videos. You could watch us for 3 months, 21 days, and 19 hours straight without any breaks. And you'd never have to sleep. True story.
I just want one very quickly add on the last article was that maybe there's the positivity that's coming out of the Trump administration about Bitcoin and Ethereum in general and other cryptos is that and less focus on CDBCs is that actually they've realized that one of the good thing about what's sold as a positive thing about CDBCs is the transparency and then being able to, KYC everything. But obviously the very nefarious side, which is shutting your accounts down and you're banning your addresses from using your funds. But maybe there's more leniency towards Bitcoin because of and Ethereum because it's quite very traceable, right? So they don't need a CDBC in that sense in terms of tracing funds because it's so easy nowadays with the technologies that we have to actually trace funds back to root.
I think a lot of the slowdown on CBDCs might because of the success of Tether. We were talking last week in one of the chat rooms about how much money Tether has made, how much money they now have for investment, and that they're almost like the Arab oil billionaires in the movie Network, where they've taken money out of the system and now they have to put money back in. And I think and they get fees and they get taxes and they get control and they can scan everything. In a lot of ways, Tether is the CBDC. I don't see the difference other than government sanction between that and a successful CBDC. And in general, as I mentioned in the chat room, Satoshi should have just invented Tether. Get all the sweet fees, print all this money out of nothing, fill a bank account full of USD, kind of point at the bank account, which again is just as strong as a point. It's a pointer. It doesn't have a value as a programming thing. It's not actually the thing. And that's the whole point, again, of Bitcoin. The point of Bitcoin is that it is the thing. You hold the thing, you send the thing around. You don't send a link to the thing. You don't send a page that says you own 10 things because of this piece of paper. You actually control and own the things because you own the key that allows the thing to be sent around. Thus, ownership is ability to control its movement.
Yeah, and they can do that by pressuring Tether issuers and Circle as well. In fact, didn't Circle get someone offered to buy Circle recently? Some random.
I want to say it's Justin Sun Tron or somebody like that. Somebody really big was going to buy, somebody kind of creepy was going to buy Circle, and we're totally supposed to be fine with it. And again, that's the thing with these. If you owned your
Oh, it was
Bitcoin
Ripple.
with Ripple, there it is.
You said someone was really creepy, and at Ripple popped up just before microseconds before the search returned, and I was like, oh yeah, creepy Ripple.
That's it. And if you owned your Bitcoin in Circle and you're like, I'm very secure in my future, I have Circle Bitcoin. Now all of a sudden, Ripple owns your Circle Bitcoin. In the background, for all you know, they could make one big trade and say, convert our resources into Ripple. We're having a Ripple reserve from now on because we're a Ripple company. And maybe that's fine because Ripple's cool, but it could be Fartcoin. Fartcoin could take over your exchange. They could have a really nice run on the meme coins. They could buy. Remember, businessmen will sell to anybody. They're like, why did you sell? They paid me more money. Like, oh, okay. Like, it's not. So again, if you're holding your own Bitcoin, or if you secured them in any ways that we've discussed, safe deposit boxes, burying them under the house, concrete, memorizing them, whatever it is, tearing the key up into pieces. We used to have that guy on who's like, I've given one word to each of my friends all over the world to hold my Bitcoin. And I was like, well, that's going to be a disaster. Yeah, I know you're excited about it now, but when it comes time to get your money, it will be a disaster. But I wish him the best. And for everyone, just hold your own coins. Like, that's the point of this thing. But these CBDCs are still coming, Dan. We got to keep moving. Moving on to issue 3. MicroStrategy doubles down on its Bitcoin bet. We're using poker terminology now. The world's largest corporate holder of Bitcoin falls short of quarterly expectations, but as announced recently, has switched from using equity money, large scale raising, to using individual money, people buying their stock and raising it, but they do keep buying Bitcoin. Again, the simplest strategy in the world. Dan, it didn't always used to be this way. You could have set up this company. I could have set up this company. We don't have fancy .com Wall Street clout like Mr. Saylor and the ability to repeat what other people have said 10 years ago. But what do you think, Dan? MicroStrategy, for what it's worth, they do keep buying. They do keep buying Bitcoin.
They do. They're definitely the chief stackers of the world right now, and certainly publicly. Obviously, there's still rumors of nation states piling in, but no one seems to know which ones and or have any evidence for it. But it's something that's quite simple, right? They don't provide any. They don't build on Bitcoin. They don't provide any Bitcoin services. They don't do anything with Bitcoin other than just buy and hold it, right? They could be doing something more constructive. They could be feeding in, giving a bit, donating a bit for development, for example, or doing something constructive on the top. But I think his strategy seems to be that, and it's going to be less of an important strategy as more banks come on board, and it becomes easier to buy Bitcoin for the general masses and for the via institutions. But it seems like his strategy was to give people a way of buying Bitcoin that can't get it via an ETF or via buying it publicly, right? So they just buy Bitcoin by proxy. Well, what's to say if if MicroStrategy ends up stacking this huge proportion? Will there ever be a correlation? Like, will there ever be a day when MicroStrategy or strategy, whatever it's called, strategy dumps, and then Bitcoin dumps because of it, because they think there's something, the market thinks there's something news? That's another, not really a danger, but another risk that comes with one of these institutions holding such a huge amount of Bitcoin, is that there's other links back to Bitcoin, and also making Bitcoin look bad, right? If you know what I mean. It's like, Bitcoin doesn't need spokespeople, and Michael Saylor's doing a pretty good job. He says some outlandish stuff sometimes, but he's doing, but he's very liked, especially amongst the bigwigs, it seems. But there's that link back, right? That Bitcoin doesn't really need a leader, and if anything, it would be nice for the world not to know who holds the most Bitcoin, because as we've said before, if we don't want to know who Satoshi is, because no one ever, it would ruin Bitcoin almost. And I think in a weird way, knowing who the biggest holder of Bitcoin is also kind of ruins the pie. Maybe I'm just jealous that I don't have 500,000 Bitcoin.
Do you remember domain names? You remember the early days of domain names? and people would go out there and squat on your name. They'd squat on your words, and they'd try to predict what's going to be popular. I feel like Michael Saylor's that guy. He's just out there squatting on Bitcoin, saying that it's going to be popular. And I feel it's incredibly tragic for the Bitcoin space. We've gone from someone like Trace Mayer, who was such an inspirational Bitcoin leader. He had reasons that he believed in Bitcoin. He would always say, you know, the different reasons for Bitcoin success. And he would talk about the network effect and that these things gave Bitcoin value, the network of Bitcoin. Whereas the Michael Saylor Bitcoin, it seems to have gotten reduced to, I look at chart go up, I invest more, chart go up. It's not a very complex reason. And what else he's doing, Dan, as far as his activism, he is inspiring people. I don't know how to say it in a nice way. I wrote parasite, bottom feeder, but it does seem like he's inspiring other parasites. He's having these business conferences where he say, you too as a business should just hold Bitcoin and do nothing, and that this will bring you great riches. And that's not helpful for the Bitcoin network. I know the Bcashers are getting their pitchforks out and all that, but it is a slightly different issue from just having a network that can scale and buy coffee on chain versus having people camping on your digital real estate, people that are trying to just camp out and take the value versus people that are saying, what makes this digital real estate valuable is that you can cut it up into pieces and send it around the world to anybody you want. And that's what we need to be focusing on, is more people into Bitcoin, more people using Bitcoin, not more businesses as people into Bitcoin, more businesses camping on Bitcoin, not doing anything.
Yeah, build. They need to build services. You know, all of this stuff that when you first got into Bitcoin, right? We were preaching about this stuff. It was about businesses accepting Bitcoin. It was about using Bitcoin. It was about sending it freely and transacting and holding your own Bitcoin. And now it's just, you know, changed.
And obviously, look at this right here, Dan. We're obviously having a privacy debate. We had a scaling debate for years and years. We're obviously in the middle of a years and years privacy debate. Michael Saylor, where are you on Bitcoin privacy? Do you support Bitcoin privacy like I do? Do you put your huge resources behind Bitcoin privacy? These are questions that need to be asked to him, and he needs to come down on one side or the other. I fear, as the local trends seem to be, people are into this ossification idea that Bitcoin is perfect and never changing, and we should never change it. And obviously, technically, that's a path for disaster. Quantum computers, mistakes in the code, changing times. We need to have some access to that code base, some ability to improve it. And privacy is the start of that improvement. Scaling was the first thing for obvious reasons. We've scaled, it's looking good. Lightning Network's looking good. Privacy is the next one. And Michael Saylor, don't just be in the past. You're in the past of Bitcoin. Exist in the future of Bitcoin too, not just a future where businesses hold all the Bitcoin on their balance sheets. I don't see that as the same future that we've always talked about.
So it seems like the margin call level is the general figure seems to be 21K. I've tried to ask a few AIs to form a consensus, but it's about 21K. But it says that the company possesses enough additional Bitcoin to post as collateral, thus avoiding liquidation, only if Bitcoin's price were to plummet to below $3,562, would the company's collateral be insufficient to support the loan. So that's we're never going sub 10K again, that's for sure. So I think he's pretty safe there. I can't see Bitcoin dropping below 50K ever again. Even, I don't know. It just seems like once we go over 100 now, it'll be a while before we go back under it.
Well, I think we can analyze from afar. The main risks for MicroStrategy would be them changing their mind. If they invented a MicroStrategy coin, obviously they would take their resources and put it into that. A change of the board, or Joey's cousin in marketing stole all the Bitcoin. You never know what's going to happen. But really quick, let's check in with the chat. I asked you guys, do we get privacy on Bitcoin? Yes or no? Starship Schrodinger's Destiny says, on-chain privacy is unlikely, shouldn't be done if it compromises auditability. But we already have privacy in Lightning. Chikizi says, I hope we get privacy, but I doubt it. Glenn T says, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got nothing to fear. They're talking about Monero. They might think that privacy might give too much power to the masses, maybe just pseudo-anonymity. but maybe we could build privacy on top of that. It's very interesting, but we're going to keep an eye on the privacy debate. And if you have access to Michael Saylor, if you're sitting next to him right now watching this on your phone, maybe poke him in the ribs and say, maybe you should take a stand on this Bitcoin privacy. And by that, we mean support it. Support Bitcoin privacy. Improve Bitcoin. Moving on to issue 4. Issue 4. Binance founder, CZ, billionaire, believes that Satoshi Nakamoto was an AI from the future. We've talked about this before on the Bitcoin group and other shows. Of course, I believe that Bitcoin or Satoshi just might be a space alien sent from outer space to induct us into a united federation of planets. Just as soon as we can unite the world under one currency, that currency is Bitcoin. It seems obvious that they're testing us and testing the ability of the human people to work together to adopt Bitcoin to become united. CZ has a slightly different take, saying that it's an AI and from the future. So not an alien, not a human. My theory with the alien is that the alien has done this on many planets before, like an intergalactic Johnny Appleseed spreading Bitcoin like the Music Man. You haven't seen this new currency? You've got Blemflarks, you've got Flarblacks. You could get rid of it. You need Bitcoin. But for CZ, the AI also has time travel capabilities, which brings up Terminator and other nightmare scenarios and means that the machines conquered time travel. So why bother doing anything? Dan, Eve, what do you think about CZ's idea that Bitcoin might not be invented by an alien, but might be invented by an artificial intelligence and an artificial intelligence with time travel?
Well, what if you're going to say AI? Why not say it's from the future? You know, you're going to be outlandish. I thought I saw someone's tweet that was quite funny actually. I don't obviously believe it, but I just thought it just tickled me. So what if AI, obviously going off down that rabbit hole, what if AI went back in time to create Bitcoin in order to introduce mining, which in turn accelerated GPU development and increased demand for stronger GPUs, ultimately pushing AI development forward and helping us reach AGI even sooner. So they've kind of gone completely down a rabbit hole. That's M4 competition on Twitter.
Well, remember, all roads lead back to Terminator. The original Terminator comes back in time. The arm survives. There's a chip in the arm. They use the chip to make the Skynet that makes the Terminator that sends it back in time. So what we're saying there, or what they're saying, is that AI is trying to accelerate its cycle and trying to get there faster, which again seems like a waste if you have time travel. I mean, why not just shoot a rocket back to the Stone Age and conquer everything then? I mean, I guess I don't know what AI's goals are, why AI wants to spread Bitcoin, why they want to spread it in the past. I mean, what do you think CZ's thinking here? He's created Binance, this exchange that hops around the world, ignoring laws, goes to Malta. Malta wants to tax them. They go to Turkey. Turkey wants to tax them. They go somebody else. They exist only in his mind and on his laptop when they're having meetings. It's a kind of a Buddhist company. It's kind of woo woo. But now he's out for this AI future theory.
I need your clothes, your boots, and your Bitcoin. It's obviously quite a funky theory. I think it's more of it seems more of a crowd pleaser, right? And not an engagement farming, but you know what I mean. Get a bit of comments going in the chat. But obviously, it's quite outlandish. But it doesn't. I always thought, time travel wouldn't time travel break one of the laws of thermodynamics, because you can't. You would have. You would have two sets of the same atoms coexisting in the same time span, right? So if I'm made of a bunch of atoms that's right now in 2025, but they weren't the same atoms that I was made of in 1983 when I was born, or even before I was born. So if I was to travel back to before 1983, then I would have to take all of those atoms from the place that they were back then. And like that breaks thermodynamics. I've never heard of that as an argument against it. But yeah, obviously, time travel is probably not ever going to happen, unfortunately, even though it does sound cool. And we've all watched the Back to the Future movies. But yeah,
I mean, maybe we could
AI
do it. We could do an exciting twist where maybe the machine was able to send some code back in time, and another machine got the code and was able to, build on it because it was a fractal or something. But no, I agree with you, Dan. I think time travel is the big jump here. It makes it very difficult. Now, could it be an AI instead of an alien? I'm with that. They could send it in over the internet through the digital waves. It could come in from space. That's a cool idea. It doesn't have to be
interesting.
delivered by a humanoid or a person. And in the same way that I think that it could be kind of a uniting computer virus, it could be a uniting computer virus from the machine perspective. And they come in, and instead of like having to conquer all the humans, they just say, well, we own all the money. We own all the Bitcoin. That thing that you're using as money, the whole, we're afraid that Satoshi might be CIA and, come get the Satoshi coins. If Satoshi was an alien or an AI in the same way, there's no fighting, there's no war. They just own everything.
Well, Chikezi's made a really good point that if AI did go back in time to create Bitcoin, it would have created it with privacy.
Oh, critiques. Everybody's a critic. Well,
no, Satoshi.
We've got some more stories here. Let's keep the stories going. These are kind of update stories. Jameson Lopp, friend of the show, says prosecutors have requested that Mashinsky be sentenced to at least 20 years in prison for his sustained, calculated campaign of deceit carried out over years, targeting ordinary people. And of course, he's talking about Celsius, whose crypto victims are demanding a life sentence for Alex Mashinsky, saying he devastated lives. He, of course, said all the things that Bitcoiners said, but was running one of those loan exchange things where you could put your Bitcoin in and get a percentage back. And it turned out that percentage was all you got back because they were messed up on the inside. Dan, Eve, what do you think about the idea of a life sentence for Mashinsky and compared to other cases such as SBF and other malpractice issues?
Well, I mean, life sentence is quite bad. Life sentences are quite hardcore. They probably should be really reserved for S offenders and murderers, I suppose. But well, maybe not. I don't know. It's for not that I'm defending the guy. Don't get me wrong. But like SBF, only got 20-something years, and they were much bigger than Celsius, right? FTX was much bigger than Celsius, although I think didn't FTX kind of customers get a reasonable payout from the fact that Bitcoin's pumped. So there's swings and roundabouts, but I don't know. Life sentence seems a bit hardcore, I think, for a fraud case. If you could link to it a bunch of things like a bunch of suicides that happened, something like that, then there's more of a case for it. But I just think that life is a bit hardcore. But regardless, he's probably got, just like SBF, this Mashinsky dude's probably got loads of stashed Bitcoin and other crypto somewhere that when they do come out, they're going to be like a billionaire again anyway.
Well, and that might be part of the reason for keeping him in jail for life. I agree, Dan. He didn't commit a violent crime. He didn't hurt anyone, but in the same way, just to argue against you, devil's advocate, he did take people's savings. He took their lives. He took their life savings. There are claims in the article of people that may have committed suicide, and they do say that there's around $4.7 billion in customer funds that were frozen when they stopped withdrawals. In some ways, although I don't think it changes, it still is about the number, the amount of money taken. The way he took it was worse. He said all these Bitcoin things. He said all these like, we're against the banks, we're fighting the banks. Even the shirt here that Jameson has him wearing is another example of originally a Bitcoin or perhaps libertarian slogan: banks are not your friends. You'd expect to see this at PorkFest, $10, some guys printing them out of the back of his truck. But this is a big company here at the time using these, crypto libertarian type sayings and tricking people with it, taking their money. And again, we know people that have done well with Celsius. They got in, they got out before the withdrawals. There's other people that get in late, they get fleeced, they get all their money taken. So It is difficult, and we've been through this. Certainly in the United States, we do not punish financial crime in the same way we punish violent crime. But it does take lives. It takes people's financial lives. It takes, they work their whole lives for this money. They invest it with these people, and not based on the value of their investment, they lose their money. That's not a fair deal. Like, our deal is you invest, you win, you invest bad, you lose, not broken system. Your funds are gone. And that's what both this and the FTX and presumably other cases like this will be like in the future. Moving on to the next issue, Dan, I don't know if you have any comment on this. I don't have very much comment, and I really don't know exactly what's going on, but I wanted to alert you guys to an issue that's going on in Bitcoin. They're trying to uncap something called op return. Op return is currently limited, and they want to make it larger. Peter Todd, I believe, has written the pull request to uncap this op return. So as with all things Peter related, it's become very controversial, and all the Bitcoiners are fighting with each other. In this tweet, we see Francis from bullbitcoin.com. He claims, my thesis is that the op return debate is crafted to a display of dominance about establishing who is the in-group and the out-group by triggering narrative conflicts with the other factions. Sorry, it's all political conservative talk, technically moot. And Peter Todd, of course, mocks him, saying, tedious take. That said, technically moot. I'm going to sit this one out. Congratulations, you didn't agree with us. You didn't sit this one out. You're actually agreeing with us. Op return isn't a significant difference because it's 4 times more costly than using witness space, which they already use. We've had more as Luke Dash Jr. is fighting with Peter Todd, ending as many comments with poor Peter end with Luke Dash Jr. blocking Peter Todd. In the response, Peter says that method of estimating fees is busted because it can't deal with variations in demand. The way fee estimates are actually made by good software is monitoring what is in your mempool right now and making an educated guess at what will be mined next. Thus, you want all transactions. And more, Peter's also fighting with Jimmy Song. Jimmy Song says, the drama of the last few days has accelerated Bitcoin ossification. It's possible that we may have already passed the point of no return. Peter Todd responds, counterpoint, it'll make changing Bitcoin easier because a big group of people who might have opposed it have shown themselves to be idiots and or scammers. None of the opposition we've gotten is remotely principled. That's a sign that we can just ignore them later. And even as I read this, and I have no empirical proof, and I don't want this to be true because I consider Peter a friend. I don't want more attention to him. It really does sound like Satoshi when you're like, a big group of people who might have opposed it have shown themselves to be idiots and or scammers. Just in the feel there. But maybe Satoshi also kind of has a short phrase and doesn't give a crap about people online because it's kind of what he's expressing. Finally, we had Gloria at Glowzo on Twitter writing, the book of Nakamoto, chapter 3, verses 4 through 11. And Satoshi spake, not in whispers, but in hex, saying, thou shalt not embed thy data in every field, for the blockchain is not thy diary. Yet bestow upon the op return a sanctuary for up to 40 bytes, no more, lest she walk the path of vanity, for 40 is the number of discipline. 40 for thy message, no more than is righteous, no less than is truthful. And behold, I give thee one more blessing, the Coinbase message, a field untouched by consensus, where miners may write freely. Use it to bear witness, to mark Genesis, to declare revolt, as I once wrote about the Chancellor. But thou shalt not waste it with shills and tokens of greed, or the wrath of Prune shall be upon thee. And it's just more fun stuff. And I think he's kind of saying about how, Bitcoin should not be written in stone, and the 40 bytes being frozen is just as silly as when in the old days when Bill Gates said 512K is enough. And now we have gigabytes and gigabytes of RAM. Dan, just really quick, and again, I totally don't fully understand the op return argument. I do think they're uncapping it, and I generally side with Peter, aka Satoshi, HBO Satoshi on this one. What do you think, Dan? Op return.
Well, from what I understand, so the main bone of contention is that it will lead to more bloating, right? There's going to be if it's capped, there's less bloating. If it's uncapped, there's more bloating. And Luke's obviously very partial about this because of his like what didn't he compare it to rape or something? He like went down that route like one day. He was like, my I'm being upped. My chain space is being upped from me, or something like that.
We do have more hilarious Satoshi speak as I look at it. He says Peter says, that method of estimating fees is busted because it can't deal with variations in demand. The way fee estimates are actually made by good softwares, and the mempool, we read this earlier, and Luke Dash Jr. says, no. Peter says, if you actually had a point, you'd say it with more than no. And then Luke says, you don't deserve more than that at this point. Truly fantastic exchanges, absolutely historic, whether Satoshi or not. Beautiful internet discourse. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
So yeah, so there's that argument, right? That it's going to lead to bloat. But then there's the argument that paying for block space is what it's all about, right? You're paying for the block space, and actually competitiveness in terms of what people want to fill the chain with is probably, a very good thing, because once the mining fees, the mining rewards run out, then the network's going to be carried by fees. So there's going to need to be quite a lot of competitiveness in the fees. Obviously, that's if Bitcoin goes to $2 million, then the fees are going to be extortionate anyway, likely. But there still needs to be, I think, competitiveness if it's going to be, world currency / world kind of safe haven asset, etc. So yeah, I can see the argument from both sides, right? People don't want bloat and they don't want it filled with monkey JPEGs and stuff. And then other people say, well, actually, we kind of need competitivity for block space so that the chain maintains its security. Because at the moment, I think I read that it's still not profitable for miners at the moment. There needs to be a good, nice little rise before mining is profitable again. So there's reasons why the return cap is good, but also reasons why it's bad.
That's the world's smallest violin for the miners. We'll have to keep an eye on it, Dan. I do think that we are going to talk about op return more in the future, and I think we'll get more detailed information about this. But I did see it on Twitter, and I love to see smart people fighting. And I think that's good theater for everybody, and also where you want to be. You want to be in these debates. I want to see this for privacy. I don't know what op return has to do with privacy. Hopefully it's a step on the way there. And maybe Peter, HBO Satoshi, will lead us. And now...
Just very, very quickly. So Starship Treasury against Destiny's made a very good point, which is that, yeah, they're already stuffing images and rune tokens in the witness space via the inscriptions, right? So what difference does it make if it's in op return instead? It's already happened, right? The monkey JPEGs have already infiltrated the chain. So,
as a non-technical perspective, if they already have the field and it's 40, what's the difference if it's 240? I mean, I know Luke Dash Jr. would be saying, it bloats the thing where, like we've been saying many years, the airplane flying around the world, not refueling. If you put more weights on this airplane, you're making it harder for us to fly. I get that. But other than that, and as far as I'm sure what Peter would probably say, they can probably do incredible things if op return was bigger. They could put more stuff in there, not necessarily monkey JPEGs, but we'll see. The debate. Well, I think
more times, like there was an argument for more around time stamping and provenance of records and stuff like that. But then I think Adam Back said recently that you could just use open timestamps instead. It's another, obviously.
And your bill of document proving that you own a house, or your lease document or whatever is my monkey JPEG.
Yeah.
And we have to say again, if you pay for the block space, you pay for the block space. You can put in it, valuable documents to save for the world, or you could put horrible stuff, or you could put monkey JPEGs. We have no idea.
And that's the modern day now version of one man's trash is another man's treasure. Is one man's monkey JPEG is my house deeds.
Hey, it's on the blockchain. It's like IVM. They're going to put diamonds on
the chain.
Solve all your problems with your diamonds. And now, of course, at the end of the show gets political. According to Watcher.guru on Twitter, Trump's Truth Social is exploring launching its own crypto wallet and token. As we've predicted before, the path, and certainly not just the president, but for others, entering crypto is, Bitcoin's really neat. I'm here to fix it. I can make something similar. I can make a copy of Bitcoin. And now we've reached that with perhaps Truth Social making their own token and wallet. We've also got Senator Cynthia Lummis saying that President Trump supports her strategic Bitcoin reserve bill to buy 1 million Bitcoin. I've criticized her on Twitter for this, saying that it's not the reason of Bitcoin to have large institutions hold large amounts. The reason of Bitcoin is for you to hold some Bitcoin and for you to send it around. And I don't think she really understands Bitcoin. Other people who don't understand Bitcoin, Roswell, New Mexico is the first United States city to launch a strategic Bitcoin reserve. This is kind of absurd, like companies, like cities and companies saying, oh, we should invest in Apple stock or Walmart because it's going to be really good. It's just kind of bizarre. Arizona, the state, is also having a Bitcoin reserve, investing 10% of their assets, which certainly I like Bitcoin and maybe it'll go up. But in the same way, is this the point of public funds for them to take them from you and invest them in some random thing? And we've got breaking news that the EU is going to, quote, ban anonymous cryptocurrency and privacy tokens by 2027. Dan, which issue do you want to talk about first? Arizona Strategic Bitcoin Reserve, Trump Truth Social Coin, or EU banning those privacy coins? You're muted. The ultimate.
So on earlier, I'm building on earlier the fact that the Monero is obviously the main privacy coin. It hasn't actually reacted badly to the news. It's up to 2.25%, which is a bit more than the kind of average of the top 100. So the markets react generally quite well, especially Monero, when the world talks about banning privacy coins, because Monero is the privacy coin, right? They're the only ones that have done it right and done it properly right. So it's kind of a positive thing when you see the EU and other people, other nations or whatever, saying they're going to ban Monero or privacy coins like Monero, because obviously Monero works. But yeah, it's sad because it doesn't do a case for us getting privacy on Bitcoin. And if they do ban privacy coins and then privacy is implemented on Bitcoin, what are the implications of that? Will the EU then be like, Bitcoin's banned, or how will that be managed? So there's wider repercussions to adding privacy to Bitcoin, and obviously the EU being such a I mean, I voted Remain, right? But they're being dicks. There's no other way to say it on some of these big crypto issues. I think it just seems a bit silly, right? You've got one side of the pond that's being like, this is clearly a very important asset. All the biggest banks in the world are diving in. You've got other nation states that are completely showing up the IMF when the IMF was laughing at El Salvador at 20K and even 15K, and they were really like hounding them. And
Well,
now,
I remember when it went down in the middle of the El Salvador thing, they're like, what a bad investment. What a terrible thing. And I was looking at those articles and I was like, I'm down too, and I'm not I'm not a country, I'm just a dude. But, it's going to go back up. These articles are going to have to eat their words. If El Salvador can manage to hold a couple more years, and I don't know their finances and what they got to pay for groceries, but if they can manage to hold, and they did, and now they're crazy up, and still, they're kind of punishing him still with the IMF loan and all that. And now he's a prison warlord, so it's not great, but.
Yeah, so it's just sad that the EU's going and Europe's going one way and America's going another on Bitcoin, and the rest of the world really is going another, because we're seeing, dare I say, even China and Russia settling in certain things in Bitcoin. The Middle Eastern states are starting to get more into Bitcoin and crypto. It just seems like the rest and Asia is obviously very much like Japan and South Korea. It just seems really silly that we're just kind of walking backwards through evolution right now.
It does seem pretty bad for the EU, but I want to defend them in the libertarian manner in that I think that the libertarians would look at it and say that the state's got a state. And one of the things that the state needs to be able to state, fortunately, unfortunately, whatever you want to say, is they need to look into your finances. They need to look into your messages. They need to know what you're up to. And you don't like that. I don't like that. We like privacy, right? State doesn't like that. State pretends to like privacy. They give you a little shine. Like even in the EU, they have the whole Protection of People Acts, the digital DPR or whatever it's called. And they try to control the cookies and all that nonsense. We're going to protect you. But at the same time,
cookies.
if you had end-to-end encryption, which we all know is actual protection, actual, like difficult to break by governments, takes weeks and weeks, needs quantum computer, whatever, backdoor magic, they have real encryption is real encryption, and they're going to block it because they have to state. So I understand them from that perspective, and I understand them, and I understand the people who want privacy opposing that. And I think that eventually we'll come to somewhere in between there. But the EU is certainly offensively clear and offensively straightforward about their desire to state. As for the other thing you were saying, Dan, if Bitcoin were to add privacy and the banks would try to stop them, I'd like to see that movie. I think that sounds super fun. Like the scaling war or whatever they're calling it these days, the block size war. That was fun. We were right side to watch it. Me and you and the audience, of course, we were watching it. In the same way, if the banks were like, oh, we should not adopt this pull request, and Peter Todd would be out there like, I think you're stupid. You might be Charles Schwab, but you're full of stupid. And just having this debate and Luke Dash Jr., oh, we shouldn't do this and all of this, I think it would be just
you tricked my node.
Yeah, and in the same way that the UASF took Coinbase and all the other big blockers by surprise, this same thing could happen in privacy. If the people and the nodes decide that they want privacy and the cypherpunks want privacy and the coders want privacy and the banks don't want it, they're going to be holding a bunch of suddenly private coins. And that's when, again, I think we're going to suddenly say, oh, it was kind of a bad idea to let all these banks hold all our coins and all the MicroStrategies, because they might just dump. They might just say, all of a sudden in 24 hours, we've changed our mind. Bitcoin is dirty drug money again, and we're getting it out of our system. We're going to be the ones to sell first. Everybody else is going to sell today, but we're going to sell first. And that could cause a huge run on Bitcoin. And I'll say I told you so once again. That'll be my theme. I think, let's see, the other issues. I think we kind of covered the Trump coin thing. It's not even really unique to him or them. Everyone comes to Bitcoin. Everyone makes a new coin. Yeah. The fact that they're making a wallet seems especially scary to me from a technical perspective. I want to just mark that up for hacks and leaks and errors and delays and just very dangerous. They're going to do it anyway. They don't care what I say. Dan, Eve, would you invest in Truth Social coin? Should Twitter/X, should Elon be making his own coin? Did Trump just lap him here? I think he kind of lapped him.
Well, I mean, if you had invested in Trump coin when like before it pumped, you probably could have made some money. And Truth Social, these things pump because of the armies that they have behind them. But I certainly won't be buying any Truth Social coin. I've not actually used it, but it looks like just a complete Twitter clone. But then so does Blue Sky. They all look identical to Twitter, right? How'd they not get done for copyright? I don't understand that.
It's a simple idea, but for Truth Social, I think you have to wear a red hat. You can't post anything unless you're wearing a red hat. But I want to double down on this idea. I think that Elon Musk totally got lapped by Truth Social. It's not a crazy, innovative idea, but people have been talking to Twitter about Bitcoin for years. I know that ChangeTip made a presentation there. I know that others made presentations. Certainly Jack Dorsey, when he ran the company, was aware of Bitcoin, dismissed it like Mark Cuban, like Michael Saylor, like many others, dismissed it, came back to it later. But why shouldn't Twitter X have its own coin? I think if he wasn't out there trying to F up the government with Doge and all his other business, he would be back at Twitter developing their own coin and make it so you could buy Teslas with Twitter coin. Like Twitter's supposed to be this everything app. And according to this announcement, Truth Social, which is not a technical thing. Twitter used to be a technology company till he fired everyone. Remember, it was hilarious. I'm going to fire everyone. And then there's been no innovation. And in the same way, so I think Twitter should have their own coin. Truth Social should have their coin. I don't care. That's fine. Dan, Eve, what about Arizona? The idea of a city or a government, a state government having a Bitcoin reserve. Is that
do they have, so educate me on this, do they have does each state have a gold reserve? Is it a, or are they talking about it from like a pensions perspective, right? Or like,
I think that's an excellent question and a good place to start, Dan. I don't think every state has a gold reserve. I don't think they're carrying a bunch of stocks like Apple
yeah,
stocks and these things. I don't think they're carrying like even like physical gold or things they need like a reserve of video cards or printer ink or whatever. I don't think previously this was not a function of state governments or even of national governments, really. I mean, you'd have like, I guess Canada has a maple syrup reserve. It's important that they, you know, it also allows them to kind of control the price in the same way you would an oil reserve. You'd have a bunch of oil on stock. So I guess in this you'd have Bitcoin. I don't know. It seems like government's investing in things to me. It just seems really weird. Like, whereas I think a more normal or maybe libertarian perspective, give the people back their money, send them a pamphlet, say you should invest in Bitcoin, have a program where the people get Bitcoin if they log in, which is a huge fraught with hacking and danger and other things. But yeah, it's very weird. It's very socialist, right? The idea that the people, the government knows more than you, and they're going to hold your funds and invest for you because you're too dumb to do this. And it also brings up this kind of idea where everyone likes it on the way up, and we're all celebrating it, and we're like, huzzah! The banks and the governments are buying Bitcoin, but eventually, right, the point of the government is not just to make money and to hold Bitcoin, right? They need to sell these if they're going to build a public park in Roswell, if they're going to build a new airport, if they're going to build a new highway, whatever it is. It doesn't seem like just with MicroStrategy, like I still don't think they're our best friend. I still don't think this is what it's about. This is definitely not what we dreamed of. But lots of people are celebrating it. Lots of people are feigning happiness. I think this is a all caps post from Pete Rizzo, friend of the show. All caps, rocket ship emoji. There's a lot of excitement.
You made a really good point about, you know, not liking it on the way down, right? That's, I think it's one thing that people taking their own risks and individually buying Bitcoin and then realizing that it's a roller coaster, especially if you're around in the early days, right? When we'd see like 20-30% drops in a day and the opposite for pumps, right? You know, there's it's a horrid feeling. Even when something, even when it went to 107K and dropped down to 70 and everyone's like, oh, chicken licken, the sky's falling because Bitcoin's 70K. Like, and you're like, it's 70K. That's incredible. That's absolutely amazing. It's all 75, whatever it dropped down to. But the general public aren't gonna like that roller coaster ride very much, right? They're not seasoned Bitcoiners like us in the trenches, right? They're just general people, and knowing that their state has invested in Bitcoin, and yeah, fair enough, it's gone up, but even if it goes up to 300K and then and they bought in at 100K, and if it drops back down to 150 in the bear market or something crazy like that, people are still going to be pissed off. They'll be like, oh, it's only 150. You know, they're not. You know what I mean. There's a mindset around holding it and watching it drop, watching your net worth just plummet and or gradually fizzle
Well, and
away, but knowing it's going to be all right in the end. And normies don't have that
those same
knowing
articles that we
in their
saw
numbers.
about El Salvador are going to come out, right? Except it's
Yeah,
going to say Arizona lost 50% of their budget investing in Bitcoin.
yeah.
Arizona City lost this much money, can't afford road signs. It's going to be that same thing because I don't know how long their investment horizon is. And like you, I doubt that it's long enough, and as well as their conviction. They might just be thinking that Bitcoin only goes up. So we're buying in it so it goes up. And then when it goes the other way, what kind of plan could this city, what kind of plan could this state have? And maybe that's why they should just be buying road signs and not investing in cryptocurrencies. As fun as everyone else, all the libertarians are suddenly in support of this. Have you noticed that? I guess Bitcoin Magazine is not very libertarian anymore, but the whole statists, all the statists are waving the states are buying Bitcoin flag. And I guess it pumps everyone's bags, so it's like it helps everyone, you know, it's a pat on your back. But no, I don't buy it. I don't like it.
Well, according to a little search, so there's only 3 states that are mentioned that have gold holdings or initiatives, and that's one of them is Texas. That's a bullion depository. and Utah and Wyoming that have states that have laws recognizing gold and silver as legal tender, but they don't directly hold gold reserves. So it doesn't seem like it's a widespread thing. Starship Schrodinger's Destiny's mentioned, very good point, is that when hyperbitcoinization happens and the dollar dies, then surely you'd be glad that your state had some Bitcoin in reserve. And said also, do they have dollar treasuries? But I think probably more, which they do, right? They have a balance sheet, they've got accounts. But a more pertinent question would also be, do
I
they
think their
hold other
job is
foreign
to.
currencies? Do they fold the because that's another, right? Bitcoin's a currency, right? We're saying that it's not gold, it's a currency. So do states hold foreign currencies in their portfolios, and that's probably less likely than gold.
I think they might, but as far as the dollars, I think generally the states are trying to spend the money. They take in the money as revenue and they spend it as programs. And so they're not really trying to make the best return because you don't get return from a lot of programs like feeding poor people or whatever. There's not like a profit. Whereas of course if you taken the money from the poor people and invested it in Bitcoin, if Bitcoin went up, you would profit. But that's not really what the state's about. That's more of a corporation type thing. And that's the difference between a state and a corporation. So I think we're going to go with that for a while. But yeah, I mean, if they held it, eventually they'll have to sell it. But what do you think, Dan, more on this issue?
Yeah, just a quick search on that sense. The states generally don't hold foreign currency reserves because they don't control the monetary policy, and that's done at the federal level, as is the strategic gold. But obviously, there's companies the within each state which would hold currency, based on their trading habits with other current countries. But
And obviously, for us and for people in this audience, you're a huge proponent of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. It's exciting. You want the state to hold it. The state holding the thing that you're investing in that backs up your investment decision. It brings more money to investment, obviously. But it does, if you reversed it and tried to think about somebody else and they're like, I'm a big proponent of Apple stock. I use all these Apple products. I like them. I think the state should buy Apple stock. It sounds kind of absurd. Kind of
yeah,
sounds kind of like you're trying to pump your own Apple stock
yeah.
bags. Insert Microsoft, Facebook, whatever company you want to put in there. But let's move on to predictions or story of the week. I want to start out with a prediction based upon something that Schrodinger's Destiny said here in the chat. Yeah, he says, Truth Social is a fork of Mastodon. And based upon that, I want to go ahead and predict that Truth Social coin will be a copy of another coin and that they will copy it with the flaws. The coin will come with some kind of embedded flaws, similar to, I'm sure there's bugs in Mastodon when they copied it and they need patches and stuff. And it's going to take smart people to make those patches, but they're probably going to get hacked first. Truth Social coin will be a copy with flaws. Dan, Eve, prediction or story of the week? Go ahead.
I'm really boring. I'm not really doing much in life at the moment, other just milling through, trying to look at changing houses. So we're looking at loads of houses and stuff like that. So not a huge amount going on. So I'm just gonna once again chill. The only thing I've done in the last couple of months, which was that rap I made. So I've put the link in the chat, and I'm actually, it's really bad quality because I just did it just in a really rushed way because I felt inspired. But I'm gonna re-record it in a recording studio, at least the vocals for it, or something like that, or like find somewhere I can record it and do a nicer version. So there's a grubby version that's on my Twitter, which is at Cryptopoly, which is Monopoly with crypto instead, as is confusing because I'm Crypto Raptor. But we'll save that for another day. But yeah, check it out because I still think it's okay to listen to.
Very cool, Dan. I was just going to do a quick review of movies. We've got the new Marvel movie coming out this week, Thunderbolts. Looks kind of fun. I'm thinking Tuesday, discount movie day, might be fun for that. Also, I saw the last Marvel movie, Captain America, whatever, Civil or New World Order, whatever it's called. It was fun because I saw it in D box where the seats had sound and they moved around.
Oh
So
wow,
even if the
like
movie's not
4D
so
type
great,
thing.
yeah, it was like you get punched. You gotta get punched, and your seat go back, and you
Oh,
get
that's
punched the
cool.
other way, your seat go back. And even if it's not a great movie, I think stuff like that can add to it. I think this Thunderbolts could be an explosive movie in that way. Very popcorn, very fun. Haven't seen it, but hope for the best. I saw some other movies. I saw a documentary about Kurt Vonnegut. It was absolutely fantastic. This guy, Robert Weedy, he followed Vonnegut around. He was like his friend. He practically became his son for more than 40 years. He documented the great author. And along the way, the guy directs the movie for Mother Night, based on a Vonnegut book, and directs a documentary about Woody Allen, the Marx Brothers, some other great documentaries. And just out of luck, you won't believe this, Dan, as a documentary filmmaker, he's friends with Larry David, and he directs the first episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm as a documentary, and then later directs, I'm sure, many episodes of the show, is very much involved. But then he comes back to it at the end and he says, I've got a box full of films of Kurt Vonnegut, and I have a duty to make a documentary out of it. And he makes a beautiful documentary about the man, the ups and the downs, the marriage, the divorce, the later books, which shockingly people don't like, and I love. Like book after book, I'm like, slapstick, this is great. Lonesome No More. All of these ideas he's putting about a loss of the extended family in the American people and the separation that technology has brought us, the people being apart from their families and their villages. Just great stuff. And you can get that through the documentary. I found it on Apple TV or whatever. It was like $5. I also got a movie, I haven't watched it yet, about Catcher in the Rye called Rebel in the Rye. It looks good. It's like a dramatization, acted out movie. It's got Kevin Spacey as the teacher, which I'm sure is not appropriate anymore, but I still love Kevin Spacey. And I know he can do a teacher. I know he's going to be in there, lecturing him, telling what's right and wrong. And I can still suspend disbelief and put aside whatever's going on in his personal life. It's not my business.
Hasn't it? It's all been thrown out anyway, hasn't it? Right?
It was thrown out, but they still he's still pilloried for it, and he still might have abused young boys. So always bad. And yeah, I know, not funny, but not, he's still an actor. The work is still there, like Michael Jackson. But the other thing I'm doing, I'm listening to Confederacy of Dunces, the audiobook. I finally got talked into it, and it's great. It's super funny, like they always said. The characters are wacky. So check that out if you haven't. Confederacy of Dunces. I'm far behind on it. It's like a Hitchhiker's Guide type classic, but I'm finally getting to it, and I'm enjoying the audiobook version on Audible. So shout out to everybody who joined us. Thanks for Starship Schrodinger's Destiny keeping up in the chat. Be sure to give us a thumbs up down below and push subscribe if you haven't already, or comment later on. We always read the comments. And for everything else, I think we're out of time. I'm going to make sure we go longer on the thing so YouTube doesn't cut us off at the end. So are you ready, Dan? Until next time, bye-bye.